Today we're going to talk about marketing channels for your agricultural products. So stay tuned to find out which marketing channels are right for you. Hello, I am Mary Griffith, the OSU Extension Educator in Madison County, and I'm here with
Rob Leeds, Extension Educator in Delaware County.
And we're going to talk today about some marketing channels, some direct marketing channels for agricultural products. Direct marketing is, of course, the idea of selling products directly from the producer to the consumer. So there's no middleman there. So we're going to talk today about selling farm products on your farm at like a roadside stand type of environment at a farmer's market, and we're going to hit on selling your products to restaurants too. So direct marketing in Ohio is a viable way to make farm income. Ohio is actually ranked 9th in the nation as far as direct-to-consumer sales. So we are excited to talk about this with you today.
Yeah, a lot of times, we come from a farming background, most of us, so a lot of us focus on production. But marketing is key because you have to have some place to sell that product to make a profit. And as Mary said, there's a lot of viable options within Ohio because we do have that urban, rural fringe where we can grow and we can also sell. But the big thing to think about when you're thinking about a marketing channel is this idea of, what are your goals? What are we think about people. We usually go to customers. But first you got to think about yourself. What are my passions? Because we know farming is not a 9-to-5 job. It's something that you're going to live 24/7. Basically the whole season. So what you need to do is think about what am I passionate about, and not only that yourself, but does it fit into my family's goals? Does it fit into the farming goals? Look at that first, and then you have to balance that with what kind of product or what kind of avenue does it best help to reach my customers. Is it an on-farm market? Is a farm market? And we'll talk about those a little bit in a little bit. You have to inventory your resources. What are my strengths? What are my limitations? Do I like to work with people? A lot of those all come into play when we talk about these direct marketing channels, and we'll explore those a little bit more as we get into that too. Once again, do I want to package things? Do I want to be able to transport? Those are all things that we have to kind of look at. And how far do I have the vehicles to be able to deliver? A lot of these things will all go into your decision as you look at these marketing channels. And like Mary said, we're going to focus on farm markets, farmers markets, and we're going to talk a little bit about restaurants, selling to them too also. But Mary, you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about registering your market and what we need to do just to get started?
Sure. So like Rob was mentioning, there's a lot to consider as you're deciding which channels to sell your products through. And one of the things is what are the regulations, and what is there a registration process? Are there any fees associated with this channel? So we want to hit on those with each of the things we're going to talk about today. So the first thing I want to show you is how to register your farm market. So I guess I'll back up and say that when we're talking about farm markets in Ohio, what we mean is what we kind of think of as a roadside stand. A farm market, the definition of that, according to the Ohio Department of Agriculture, is a market where you're selling products from your property, excuse me. And so what do you have to do to register your farm market with the Ohio Department of Ag? This is actually a very easy, simple process. The Ohio Department of Agriculture has a form, which you are looking at here, to register your farm market. They like you to register your market annually. Every year you will fill out a new form and submit it to the Ohio Department of Ag, and it will just give updated information on what your hours are, where you're located, and just basic information about your operation. They will feed that information to the USDA so that we all know which farm markets are out there and operating, and we have the right information about when you're open so that your customers know when they can come out and find you. So it's a very easy process. It's free to register, no fees associated. So beyond that, there are some other things to think about with farm markets or roadside stands. As Rob was mentioning, with each of our marketing channels, they're a little bit different. And with a roadside market, with a farm market, you are going to, by definition, be having your customers come onto your property. So because of that, there are some different things you want to consider as you're considering entering this farmer's market or this marketing channel. One of the things is, do you have resources that your customers are going to be expecting when they come onto your property? By resources, I mean things like parking, restrooms, and other facilities that customers and clients will just expect when they come to a business. You are also going to have to consider your location compared to your customers. Are people going to be willing to make the drive out to your property? How close are you to, are you on a high traffic road? If not, how are you going to make sure that your customers can find you? So signage becomes really important with something like a farm market, a roadside stand. So I have some examples of signage for you here on the screen. On the left, I have two signs that are signs that you would see from the road that would help people find you. That's one type of signage that's going to be important. If you have a farm market, you want people to be able to find you, to know that you're there as they're driving down the road. So even if they've found you on Facebook or somewhere else, if they know that they're coming to see you, a lot of times you're driving through the countryside or you're driving even on a state route or a county road that you're just not familiar with. It helps to have that signage so that your customers know that they're headed the right way and that to help them find you. The other type of signage that you see on the right side of the screen is directional signage for your customers once they come onto your property. First of all, your customers, once they come onto your property, they know that they're there, they feel good that they know that they've found you. Once they get there, we all know you get to a business, you want to know where to go. You want to know where to park. Maybe you're going to have to find the bathroom once you get there. You want to know where the entrance is. People want to be able to come onto your property and feel that they know how to navigate their way through your business and find the things that they're looking for. They don't want to get there and feel confused that they don't know what to do. So signage can help with that.
And Mary, when we talk about signage too, can you speak to a little bit about, what kind of considerations do we have before we put up the sign? Zoning officials, municipalities, some different things like that.
Can you speak to that?
Sure. Once again, when you get to sign or you decide you need a signage to direct people in, there are some rules and regulations that vary by township, municipality that you need to check out ahead of time. It's always good to have that support team together before you start into the marketing. And part of this is working with your local zoning officials as you go through. So check out what you can and can't do with signage as far as putting them along the road, where you can put them, maybe how long they can be there. There's a lot of different things like that you need to check out, but that's something to consider when you look at your signage as far as directional signs off your property. Just involve them in the decision making.
That's a good point, Rob.
Okay.
So moving on to farmers markets.
Well, let's talk a little bit about.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about farmers markets right now. When you look at the on-farm market, a lot of that, the idea is you're bringing people onto your operation. So you need to worry about some ideas of, like Mary said, what hours are you going to be open? Make sure that you have those well publicized, because you don't want people coming out when you're not open. Sometimes they'll come onto the property and not know what's going on, and they so you want to make sure that they know what's going on. Second of all, you make sure that you have enough parking. The more activities you have, the more produce you have, is the longer they're going to stay. So you need to have more spots for more cars. So make sure that you have that in consideration. Once again, maybe the weekends you'll need 40, 50 spots, but the rest of the time you're good with 10. Make sure you plan for that big slug of people you're going to get at a certain time. You don't want anybody being inconvenienced. So the other thing you have to worry about is the idea of the liability. When you bring people onto your operation, it brings up a whole new set of liability. Talked a little bit earlier about this idea of having a support team. Your insurance agent, someone you can talk to about the liability issues, such as an attorney, is also good to have on there. But those types of things are something you can think of ahead. Are you comfortable with those? Maybe you're not. And then we'll talk a little bit about farmers markets in a second. Maybe that's more of an avenue that you want to do then, if you're not comfortable bringing people onto your own place. But the idea of other facilities, whether it's a restroom or maybe a portable toilet you bring on there, what kind of customer conveniences do you really feel comfortable bringing on there? And then once again, you have to balance that with the cost of doing business. But some of those things are very important to consider before you get into that marketing chain. If you're not comfortable with those, maybe you want to think about farmers markets. So, Mary?
All right, so with farmers markets, this is, of course, the idea that you're actually leaving your property, you're bringing your products to a market with other vendors there. So for some of you, that's going to work out a little bit better. I want to show you, go over first some of the rules and regulations with farmers markets. So a lot of times we get this question of what type of licensing do I need to sell my products at farmers markets? And depending on the product, there could be other licenses and inspections that are required. But in general, to transport your products from your home, from your property to the farmers market, you need to have a mobile retail food establishment license. So this is the license that's issued by your county health department. And you should obtain the license from the county where your farm is located. So it doesn't matter which counties you are selling your products in, which counties the farmers markets are located in. You want to get this mobile retail food establishment license from the county where your farm is located. And that's important because each county has a little bit different fees associated with their license, and they might have some differences too in their interpretation of how strictly the requirements of exactly what the requirements mean as far as transporting your products. So this license is required for transporting products that are potentially hazardous, and this includes eggs, meat, dairy, fish, things that need to be held at certain temperatures and moisture levels in order to remain safe to consume. So this license is all about maintaining certain temperatures during transportation. So this is all about how you transport the product and making sure that you're holding certain temperatures and moisture levels to try to reduce any contamination of foodborne illness causing organisms. So again, this is issued by the local health department where your farm is located. It's good for 1 year, so this is a license that you'll need to get every year annually if you're going to be selling potentially hazardous materials or food at different markets. and it could require commercial equipment. Basically, it could require refrigeration in your vehicle, depending on how the county interprets the rules. Most counties will require some kind of refrigeration for transporting eggs, dairy, or meat. So that's basically the licensing regulations for required to sell products at farmers markets. For some different types of foods, there are different licenses. You can find out all the details about which licenses are required to sell home-baked goods, cottage foods, anything like that. That's all regulated by the Ohio Department of Agriculture, and all those different license requirements and fees are on their website. Sometimes we get the question of whether or not there are fees to sell at a farmer's market, and that all depends on the farmer's market. The market manager is going to be able to work with you to let you know the rules that particular market has, and they all vary.
Yeah. Okay, now we've talked about the rules and regulations. Now let's talk about the fun stuff. This is actually going out and selling. That's what we like to do. The idea of how do we bring in customers, how do we work with them, what are the challenges, what makes us successful. We want to touch on that a little bit, and to me that's the exciting part, because that's not only creative, it's also something that you can set you apart from your neighbors. So when you look at it, Mary, especially from a farmer's market, what are the big challenges you see?
Sure. So some of the challenges for consumers, as far as what are some of the things that keep people from shopping at the farmers markets? Things like farmers markets usually have limited hours. They only operate certain hours during the week and certain days during the week. Well, sometimes that doesn't work with your consumers. Yeah,
usually
schedule.
A Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday to market.
Saturday morning or a weeknight evening type hour. Sometimes parking can be difficult. A lot of times the consumer might be looking to buy all their products in one place, and that can be a challenge at the farmer's market. So why do people shop at the farmer's market?
Yeah. Why would I want to go there? That's
the important thing to ask yourself when you're thinking about appealing to consumers, especially nowadays. A lot of our consumers can order their groceries online, order their food products to be delivered right to their door. Right. So what would make a person want instead to travel to the farmer's market, park a couple blocks away, and maybe pay a little bit higher price for a product? What would make somebody want to do that? Yeah. So I think the important thing to remember as you're marketing your products is the farmer's market shopper is a little bit different than the person that's shopping online at Walmart, for example. The motivation is different. They might be driven less by convenience and price, and more by wanting to experience something. So a farmer's market is a little bit more of a recreational activity. It makes shopping more of an experience and less of a chore.
And that's a great thing about a farmer's market. A lot of the agritourism people like to say that the wineries were the first agritourism, but I like to always say it's really the farmer's market, because a lot of people go to a farmer's market, and you can see this when you go to the farmer's market. They go for it for the experience, for the idea of a social event, if you will. And like Mary says, when you get there, it's about the food, it's about the quality of the food, but it's also about the event. And you have to keep that in mind as you go. And keep that in mind too, is that something you like as you go? First of all, the people that shop there, and this goes for on-farm markets too, is they want to know the farmer. They want to know how he produces, what his background is. They want to develop that relationship, and that's a little bit different than trying to develop a relationship over the internet or whatever you may be buying. So cultivate that ability. Tell your story, give them the background, where you came from, how many generations. There's a lot of different ways you can tell that story. You can do it through signage, you can do it through personal interaction, but don't be afraid to go out there and tell the story. And once again, don't be be afraid to be a little bit of a character. That's the idea. It's about the entertainment. Some farmers markets will bring in entertainment, maybe a small band or a street comedian or whatever to kind of work it, or they'll do cooking demonstrations, anything to add to that entertainment that they're putting on. So when you're looking for a farmer's market to sell in, look and see if they do some of those kind of things. That helps bring in the customers, but you as a vendor, once again, you need to add to that, to put yourself out there, to be a little bit different, to tell your story. Once again, are you comfortable with that? If you're not, then maybe you want to pick a little different venue or channel to sell your products too. It's a social type atmosphere too. Get out there, talk to people, see what they're doing, see what they're interested in. As far as market research, there's nothing better than a farmer's market, because if you bring a certain product, you get to interact with the customers and see, is that what they really want? Do I need to bring something different? Do I need to bring it in a different form? There's a lot of different things, especially if you're doing added value. Is there something else I can bring, or I can make and bring and sell also? So it's great to have that interaction with the customer. That's a big reason that people come in there, that idea of interacting with the customers too. We talked about a little bit already, but the quality of the produce. A lot of the produce that comes in there, pick fresh. There's some market rules of when you can pick fresh, and it comes from a local vendor, so it's not a lot of travel. So there's a little bit different quality, and we have to realize that too when we're pricing compared to a grocery store and some different things like that, we need to maintain that quality first of all, and we may need to maintain that trust with our customers to make it worthwhile too. A lot of people shop farmers markets because it is such a large quantity of and differentiated set of produce. They can get some specialty products they may not be able to find at their local grocery store. So those things will bring people in, and once again, you want to cultivate that relationship. I mean, Mary, you've seen a lot of different products at different farmers markets, so be creative. So what a few of you that catch your attention?
Sure. So like Rob was saying, people are going to the farmers market because number one, a lot of the reason that they go is because they want to know something about their farmer. They want to know something about the food that they're eating and how it was produced. And so you really need to, you can really help yourself be successful at the farmers market if you indulge people in those in the reasons why they're coming there, and share that story with them, share that information. But sometimes they do want to see some weird products. You'll see, rainbow carrots or purple broccoli or things like that. I know Rob's seen some weird products going to different farmers markets around the world. More and more, it seems like I see products that people are selling for pets. There's a lot of dog treats now for sale at farmers markets.
Cat grass, yeah.
Rob's seen cat grass for sale at different farmers markets. So that brings up another good point that you mentioned. It's a good place to do some market research and see what sells and what doesn't. A good thing about farmers markets as a marketing avenue is that there's no quantity requirement. So you're free to bring as much as you want or as little as you want. Now, you can play with that a little bit and kind of find what works best for you, find what's excessive as far as the quantity, find what's not enough. If you're always selling out by 9 a.m. and the market goes till noon, you're not bringing the right amount, and it might not make people want to come back and form that relationship with you, so you might be wasting your time there. So you've got to play with the quantity, but you can also play with the products that you bring. Sometimes you develop a relationship with a customer at the farmer's market, and they might ask you specifically, maybe it's a restaurant or a larger buyer, might ask you specifically, I've always wanted to buy X product. Can you grow this for me next year so that I have it, so that I can buy it from you?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, when you look at why people shop at the farmers market, there's a lot of different reasons. It goes all the way from the quality of the product to the trust they're developing, the relationship they're developing with the farmer. But when you put it all in a nutshell, it is have quality product, but you also have to be a people person to go out, talk to people, and get some ideas of what they want, because it's about that relationship you're developing with them. But one thing we want to touch on too is you can develop those relationships. You do a lot of that ability to connect with the customers through the signage. We talked about directional signage, but signage also within the market is also very important. Once again, you want to make people realize, how do you come in the booth? What is each product and what is it priced? Make the signs conducive to what the product you have to sell and the display you have. And we'll talk about displays here in a second. The idea of how much does it cost? What is it? So if you have some little bit different items, they may not have seen it before, may not know. So you have it labeled, have it fit your brand of your farm. That signage will go a long way towards drawing people in and developing that relationship.
So you're looking at a few examples of signage. Rob talked about telling your story. You can use your signage as a way to tell your story and draw people in. As customers are walking through the farmers market, one thing that's a little bit different about selling a product at the farmers market compared to at your roadside stand is there are other vendors at the farmers market, and they might be selling the same products that you're selling. So your visual display and your signage are what could be a motivator for somebody to actually walk in and start talking with you. So Rob was talking about forming relationships at the market, being a social people person. The first thing is to visually catch people's eye to make them interested to come in and talk with you. Otherwise, you're not even going to have that opportunity. So you're looking at some signage examples here that show some examples of different signs. There's no real requirement as far as what you need to put on your signage. But in general, people, as they're walking through the market, they want to know what you're selling. They might want to know something about how it was produced, and they want to know the price. Those are things that people probably don't want to ask you about necessarily. So it's nice to have those on your signage, and you can be fun and creative with it. Try to give a little bit of your personality, show something about what your vibe is on your signs. I like that happy chicken sign. I think that's a good example of making signage fun. I want to show you a little bit difference as another example of something that you would want to put on a sign is whether or not you accept credit cards. If you have a square or if it's cash only, that's another important piece of information that people want to be able to get from signage that might be a deciding factor for people whether or not they're going to even walk into your booth. I want to show you also some examples of visual display. So there's a lot of different ways that you can organize your product. I think you can probably see, I like the two displays on the right quite a lot. I think those look really nice, while the one on the left is less organized. It doesn't look abundant. It doesn't look as appealing to the eye that would draw you in and make you want to buy the product. Thinking back to signage, a lot of people, like we've been talking about, want to know something about your farm and who you are and where you're located. Just something as simple as the name of your farm and where it's located sometimes can draw people in and make them want to talk to you about where you're from.
Yeah, and you notice on the display slide that Mary had there in the signage slide, they use a lot of natural materials and they show a lot of abundance as you go in. You also need to be concerned about the lighting on your display and your signage. Sometimes there's too much light, you can't see, so you need to bring your shade out a little bit more and kind of block a little bit of it. Then some other times you need to increase the light. If you have an indoor farmer's market, make sure that lighting is right and shines on the produce and the signage so people can see it and they know what they're buying. And once again, you do look at the angle and then you look at the arrangement of it. But well, thanks again for staying staying with us. We're going to wrap it up, so be sure to join us next week when we are back with Marketing Matters.